All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Our guest today is Martin DeBono. Martin is president of GAF Energy. GAF Energy has built a combined manufacturing and R&D facility in California, where they are currently building the next generation of solar roofing systems. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So share with us a little bit about your background and really what led you to solar and to doing what you're doing.
Certainly. So out of college, I actually joined the Navy and I was a submarine officer for 5 years. After serving in the military, I pursued a career in technology, working for various software and hardware companies. At some point during that journey, a recruiter reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you interested in going to work for a solar power company?" And this was back in 2012. And at the time, I thought, solar power, that's just a niche industry. Well, it turns out that even at the time, it was a niche industry, and it's been growing very quickly. In fact, last year, more than half of all the new electricity generation in the United States has come from solar. And so for the last 8 or 9 years, actually, I've been in solar. And most recently, I've become the president of GAF Energy, which is an operating company in the Standard Industries family of companies. Now, Standard Industries is best known for owning the largest roofing manufacturer in the United States, GAF, the largest roofing manufacturer in Europe, BMI. And so I joined a company that has a strong heritage in roofing and manufacturing. And the reason for this is we see that there is a convergence between solar and roofing, and being part of the world's largest roofing manufacturer, I felt would be a great platform in which to really push both industries forward.
So why solar? What are some of the opportunities that you see for solar long term? I mean, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. So that's not usually the place that we think of sun a whole lot.
Not yet.
California.
Not yet. Not yet. But yeah, solar, I think, is really misunderstood. Of course, I'm here in California, which is one of the nation's leading solar markets. But what's really remarkable is the costs of solar generation have come down and the costs of electricity have gone up. So in solar, you're getting electricity from technology. And what you've seen with technology is the price goes down. The price of your iPhone has come down, price of computers come down, or you get way more performance at a similar price point. And so solar energy is really solar electricity is following the price of other technology curves where you get more for the same price. Whereas traditional energy, coal, natural gas, it's going up because those commodity prices are rising with inflation. And the opportunity with solar energy is really huge, including in places like Ohio, especially when you incorporate the solar generating material into the building itself. And so by manufacturing a solar roof, we're able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, integrating the solar system into the roofing system. It reduces costs and will allow more and more people to get the benefits of solar electricity, which is a more reliable source of electricity, and it's a less expensive source of electricity than what you get from utilities.
Well, and it's also obviously a lot cleaner and something that we don't have to worry about running out of anytime soon. So as far as that contribution of making a difference on the planet, it also sounds like solar really has kind of a leg up on a lot of the other places that we get our energy from.
Yeah, it's whether a lot of people aren't sure about the impacts of climate change and global warming, but what I tell many people is, look, you do know the impacts of getting fossil fuels, right? You're mining, you're shipping, you're transporting. As a veteran myself, the reason we have the 6th Fleet, which protects the Persian Gulf, is to ensure our oil supplies. Wars are fought over oil. So certainly there's a benefit for self-generation of electricity. Second, the Earth's staring us in the day, or at least for half the day. The amount of energy that the sun transmits to the Earth in 1 minute is the equivalent of all the world's power plants output in a year. So if we just harness a small fraction of that, we could wean ourselves off fossil fuels. And you're right, it is clean. But I think that for the most common reason people do choose to get a solar roof is a selfish one, and that is it's less expensive. Right? It's a great investment. Investing in solar is something that definitely pays off.
So, and your big emphasis has been the fact that you are doing the R&D and the manufacturing in the United States. So why is that such a big deal?
Yes. So it's really been shocking. Now I'm old. I just had a major milestone of a birthday. But when you see just the loss of manufacturing expertise in the United States, and especially in solar, I think like as recently as 5 years ago or 6 years ago, almost a third of the solar panels in the world were manufactured or manufactured in or manufactured by US companies. And now that number is less than 5%. And I've seen facilities move across borders or into different states just to save a few $100,000 or a few $1 million a year. And perhaps most concerning, I've seen an exodus of talent from the clean energy industry accompanying with the decline of American manufacturing excellence in clean energy. And by this, I mean, 8 or 9 years ago, when I got into this solar industry, it was pretty easy to recruit people because they're like, hey, yeah, I'm going to go work for an American company. I want to make a difference. As you mentioned, solar energy is clean energy, and it does certainly help with some of the challenges that our energy supply chain has today. But they become disillusioned when they have to spend 2, 3, 4 months a year away from their home by flying to Asia, which is the predominant manufacturer of solar products in the world, and trying to implement their inventions on the manufacturing line. And so today, those same people are not getting into the clean energy industry, but rather they're taking jobs at Google, Facebook, Microsoft. They're highly educated, and those companies need highly educated people. So for us, combining manufacturing and R&D, we felt was a necessity, one, to attract talent, and two, to very quickly meet our customers' demands.
And so solar has been around for a while. So what is it that you're doing in R&D, bringing it to the United States that's really differentiating what we can go and get those products from Asia and from the rest of the world?
Yes. So as I mentioned, by combining R&D and manufacturing in the same facility, we've been able to make advances very, very rapidly. We just announced the world's first nailable solar shingle. So it's really the first advancement in the way solar is installed in about 30 years. The traditional way solar is installed is you take effectively a flat screen TV. I think many of your listeners have seen a solar panel. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet or 2 feet by 4 feet. And you have to lug it up to the roof. And then you have to bolt it onto the roof through the water protection barrier. What we've created is a nailable solar shingle, and there's nothing else like it in the world. And it will reduce the installation time remarkably. And it also makes sure that the waterproof integrity of the home is maintained, and it looks a lot better than those ugly solar panels. And we've been able to do it so quickly, again, by not having our R&D team have to spend half their lives on planes, but literally walking 10 feet across a corridor where they can actually see the manufacturing line where these new products are created.
Wow. So share a little bit about what those panels, what do they look like compared to, I mean, I think about the solar panels and, look like big windows on a roof.
Yeah.
Do they look more like a traditional roof, or what does that look like? And, and why did somebody invent it?
Yeah, certainly. So what we produce looks nothing like the traditional solar panels at all. It looks like a shingle. So a traditional shingle is 40 inches wide by about 16 inches tall. And, the traditional shingles overlap half of it, right? So as you shingle a roof, half of the shingle above it covers the shingle below it to make sure the water flows off of it. We created a solar shingle that is about 5 feet wide and, again, 16 inches deep, and they nail down. It looks just like a shingle. In fact, if you are standing on the sidewalk and you're looking up at your house, they are perfectly in line with the rest of the roof. There is nothing that the solar itself is the shingle. So it's a remarkable. Now, the reason no one has invented it before is that I don't think people thought it could be invented, but more importantly, there's a number of factors at play that allow this to be the right time for such an invention. Such as, I'm assuming you'd like me to go into those factors.
Yeah.
So first off, what's happened in the solar industry is the solar cell itself is no longer the most expensive part of the value chain. The actual installation of the solar module is the most expensive part. When someone looks at what makes up the cost of a solar system, getting installed is the biggest part, and sales and marketing is the second biggest part. The solar cell itself has come down. Very much in the same way, if you think about an iPhone, right? Memory has come down to very, very low prices. Processing power has come down to very, very low prices. And that spawned a new form factor of computer, the handheld computer or the iPhone. Well, similarly, the very, very low cost of the cell has enabled us to focus elsewhere. So the first reason is the reduction in the price of the solar cell. The second reason is we come from it from a roofing perspective. GAF Energy, through its relationship with Standard Industries, knows a lot about manufacturing, and we're able to put that manufacturing expertise to bear to create an entirely new form factor based on the shingle form factor, which the company has been perfecting for 50 or 60 years. And so when you combine the advances in materials technology in solar, along with the manufacturing expertise in roofing, that those are two of the three constituent components. And the last was willingness to invest. Standard Industries is one of the largest private companies in the United States, if not the world. They have the capital to invest. They've invested in things such as leading technology, such as recycling asphalt shingles, and their willingness and desire to make a long-term investment. As I mentioned, even though it seems very quickly, it's taken us 2 to 3 years to do this, but they've invested 2 to 3 years to make this happen. So the combination of some of the constituent components of solar pricing coming down, roofing manufacturing expertise, and willingness to invest has allowed GF Energy to really move the state of the art to solar into something that nobody expected could be done.
Well, I think from a labor standpoint, it also sounds like there can be tremendous savings in labor if you're not lugging those big tiles up to the roof and doing all that. So talk a little bit about that aspect of your product.
Yes, absolutely. So the labor savings is twofold. One, the actual physical of getting the material on the roof is much simpler, right? The shingles go up just using traditional shingle transportation methodologies. And so in many parts of the country, when the shingles are delivered, they're delivered right onto the roof, as opposed to a solar module having to be lugged up the roof. It's about 47 pounds. I think the OSHA limit is 50 pounds, so it's just under that. And then once on the roof, you literally use a nail gun, and it goes down at least twice as fast as the next fastest technology for solar. So the savings is significant on labor. The other savings that we get, and this is directly related to our manufacturing in the United States, is because we're closer to the customer by virtue of the fact that our factory is in California, we're able to take advantage of streamlined logistics and supply chains, as opposed to, again, as I mentioned, 95% of the solar panels in the United States come from outside the United States. And so if that whether that's being held up on the ports on either coast, or the amount of time it takes shipping across the ocean, that's a lot of 6 to 12 weeks on the water. With inflation these days, that just eats into your profits. So we have labor savings, and then the savings one gets from the supply chain by being located in close proximity is fantastic.
Right. And so we're hearing for years and years, so many manufacturers were leaving the United States, and it sounds like this is a good excuse to start bringing some of that manufacturing back. But what do you think are some of the reasons that we've lost so much manufacturing here in the States, including solar?
Yes, certainly. I think that the reason that we've lost it is that, honestly, many companies just became concerned about cost and not innovation. They became concerned about cost and not customer satisfaction. And then, of course, there's no doubt that other governments, China specifically, thought, hey, we need to build a manufacturing base here. And they made low-cost government loans available to incent people to move their facilities overseas. But the reason I say that it's really short-term is because, I've seen decisions made where one moves a factory from the United States outside the United States for a few $1 million. And in fact, you lose that in terms of being able to rapidly meet changing market requirements. You lose that in terms of actual productivity losses because you have people who have designed the equipment aren't co-located with people operating the equipment. And so when there's challenges, you lose production. Those are costs that don't show up in any spreadsheet initially, but they absolutely show up overall. And I think that what you see in the solar industry is, as more and more of the solar manufacturing has moved overseas, the overall profitability of the industry has declined. I tell many people who are not familiar with the solar industry, it's like the airline industry. If you added up all the profits in the airline industry from like 1930 to the year 2000, it was basically zero. They couldn't make any money. And I think that what you saw in the solar industry is, as solar manufacturing was outsourced to Asia predominantly, the overall profits in the solar industry by manufacturing has gone away. And that's because they lost sight of innovation and they lost sight of customer service.
And does your product have both for home use and commercial use, so residential and commercial, or is it primarily geared one or the other?
Our product is primarily geared toward the residential space.
Okay.
So GAF is the largest residential roofing manufacturer in the United States. They're also one of the largest commercial manufacturers as well. But we designed our product to blend perfectly in with a typical residential roof. So in the United States, the predominant roof type is our shingles. And so our solar shingle matches very well with the traditional shingle. And so you have a seamless transition from one to the other. There's so much opportunity in residential roofing right now that that's our focus. Let me put this in perspective. Over 5 million people a year get a new roof. GAF has over 25% market share, I think, of that number. So they're able to give them 1 million people a year. And so for us, the opportunity around roofing is so large on the residential side that's where we'll focus initially.
Okay. And on this show, a lot of times we're talking about workplace culture in manufacturing and in the skilled trades, which yours kind of is a nice correlation of both of those.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that you are doing well with your employees as far as not only attracting people to your industry, but some of the things that you're doing to keep them there?
Right. So I hate saying skilled and unskilled because our assembly line operators become very skilled in what they do. But how about we say the folks, the PhDs and the masters that are inventing the products, for them, the ability to literally see the fruits of their labor every day is incredibly rewarding. It is, even now that the factory's been up and running now for 4 or 5 months, people just go out and walk the line and look at what's going on, and it gives them a tremendous sense of satisfaction. They also appreciate the fact that they don't have to get on a plane to make any changes. And so if you're a creative type, if you're an engineer, an inventor, physicist, chemist who wants to make big impacts in the world, the ability to see the fruits of your labor come to fruition in the same place is remarkably rewarding. It actually exceeded my greatest expectation. We did this because we wanted to attract talent and retain it. And the looks on the smiles on people's faces when they see that line running and the ability for us to change very quickly has paid huge dividends on the PhD master side of the house. As for our operators, and the cultural challenge is typically when you have a manufacturing company, all the people that design the actual widget or whatever you're making are physically separated from those that actually manufacture it. And there can end up a multi-caste cultural system, if not, right? Hey, you mentioned I'm skilled, you're unskilled labor. We're trying very hard to avoid that. So much so it does cost us a bit more, but we share the same cafeteria. We provide the same benefits to both skilled and unskilled labor. And while that costs a little bit, what we believe that enables us to do is if you can instill empathy for the operators in the people that develop it, you will come up with a much more efficient manufacturing process much more quickly. And so the time to implement cost downs is increased. The time to implement new features that enable you to get more margin has increased. And so by really having just one workforce as opposed to thinking about it as skilled and unskilled, there are benefits there as well. That all said, operating in California is a very high cost environment, and automation is super important to us as well. And so we expect that over time we'll be able to automate more and more of the process to improve our output, and our operators will move from doing manual steps to be the ones that oversee the robots that do it. This is only possible by having the R&D team co-located with the factory.
Well, and the other benefit too is if somebody on that factory who is using the product sees something that maybe the engineers miss because they're not involved in the day-to-day manufacturing or the day-to-day installation, then that conversation happens much more quickly than, again, like you said, having to fly over to Asia to make a tweak that may or may not work. And, so you're having that conversation. And when those the unskilled employees feel heard, feel that they're making a difference, that level of commitment and loyalty to the company goes up several times because they're not just some grunt worker on the line. They're actually being listened to and having lunch with the skilled labor.
I know it happens all the time. There's a young woman who's a PhD. She regularly is over talking with the operators that are the ones who are manufacturing her part of the value chain. And they developed the tight bond. And that instantiates itself is that she actually came and redesigned some of the ergonomics of that, right? This is all stuff that is best practice in manufacturing, but here you have it happening at a much quicker pace. Similarly, our attrition, now is remarkably low. For what we pay, we have had such low attrition on the operator side, and I attribute that to, hey, they are just as invested in making this company work, because their recommendations are, if not immediately implemented, they're immediately discussed, right? It's not like they put them in some box and they may hear back in 6 to 9 months, but they can go and talk with the folks that are responsible for their particular job. And it really has been remarkable. And so I think that overall, this will enable our success, right? We have a very good product market fit. We have the ability to manufacture this product locally, so we'll be able to stay in front of the competition with respect to implementing new capabilities. And of course, then therefore, the challenge becomes, how do we manage our costs? Well, we manage our costs by getting costs out of the system faster, simply between the communication and the time from R&D to production. And that will enable us to do this. And if we're successful, I would expect others to follow this model.
Yeah. And when we think about how difficult it is to find labor these days to begin with, because everybody's fighting over the same people, of when you have those people and they feel that they are listened to, and like you just said, with that PhD, looking out for that workers' ergonomics and taking care of the couple $100 or couple $1,000 that it takes to solve those little problems are minuscule compared to what it takes to replace that help that you need in the manufacturing plant. So it sounds like you've really created a great environment at all levels of that.
Yeah, we're doing things that are not typical, right? I think if you think about the typical plant operator, when you're talking to them, empathy is typically not on the things that you look for, right? You want someone who can drive down costs, drive up efficiency, and manage to a set of numbers. Included in those numbers is an acceptable range of turnover. Well, our position is we should have no voluntary turnover, meaning the only turnover we should have are those people whom we think are not performing well. Everybody else, if they lose, that's another 3 or 4 days, 2-3 weeks for them to become expertise in what they're doing. And so it takes a big leap of faith to think that will instantiate itself in the bottom line, in the profitability of the company. But to date, we have been successful by doing things different than anybody else has. We've been able to achieve results that are atypical. That's not to say that there are a lot of many American manufacturers that are super profitable, but there's probably no American manufacturers of solar panels that are very profitable. And so we feel that by doing things differently, we've been able to achieve different results in our particular segment.
Wonderful. Well, as we're getting to the end of our time together, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that you share with our listening audience today?
I think we covered it. And I think that is maybe one thing we missed that is there is an opportunity as the rest of the world catches up in manufacturing capability and rises the standard of living for their employees. There is a phenomena that labor is no longer necessarily cheaper outside of the United States. In those areas where it is cheaper, it's cheaper for a reason, meaning they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the education, and you're going to pay for that lower cost labor in some way, shape, or form, right? The labor rates in China are really high. So the old answer of go build it in China is not necessarily the right answer. And then, of course, if you want to take a risk on some other developing nation, there's a huge number of risks that people should be concerned about. And so therefore, I think that it's certainly possible, if you can manufacture solar shingles in the United States and be a sustainable business doing that, then you can manufacture anything, because it is as competitive a global market as there is. And so I would just encourage people to continue to look for opportunities to bring jobs back to the United States, but you have to do it differently, right? You can't operate a factory in the United States the same way you operate a factory overseas. But by doing it differently, you should be able to take advantage of closer proximity to your customers and shorter time between innovation and execution, and thus being able for you to claim the margin as a result.
Wonderful. And if people did want to connect with you to learn more, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. Our website is gaf.energy, and you'll be able to see images of the new solar shingles that we're making. I'm also on LinkedIn, Martin DeBono. I'm the president of GAF Energy. Hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to build a more robust relationship or more robust network amongst manufacturing professionals.
Wonderful. Well, Martin, again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Hey, do me a favor. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. Also, feel free to share the podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow the network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either go to the website at manufacturers-network.com or share the podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow this network, the stronger and deeper community we will have. I appreciate you. Thank you.